All right, we'll get started here. Kent, how are you?
How you doing, Pete? I'm well.
Good.
Thanks for
Happy
joining me.
Friday. Yeah. Yeah. So I think for today, this is a exciting conversation. I mean, because you and I kind of started working together a few years ago, right? And
Yes.
so yeah, I think for kind of the goal today is we'll just kind of go through a little about WebFX, about Pacer Pumps, and just kind of talk about getting you guys on Amazon, right?
Yes,
So
indeed.
I'm Pete with WebFX for anybody watching, and WebFX is a digital marketing agency. We're located in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and we have Kent with us here too. So just I had slides here. I should probably go through some of these, right? And so WebFX. We have about 350 full-time employees, and we work with about 185 manufacturers, and then whether it's be Amazon or organic SEO. And for today, we'll focus on kind of your kind of success with Amazon. But yeah, and I got the screenshot for you.
That's wonderful.
So
This is
maybe to give a little bit about Pacer Pumps.
well, this is the Pacer Pumps team here, and this is the team that makes it all happen. We've been in business since 1974. We're a small family-owned business operating out of Lancaster, Pennsylvania, and we are the leader in lightweight thermoplastics centrifugal pumps. And this is where the magic happens. And we were so delighted to get with Mantech, Kent Keller, our business advisor, hooking us up with you, Pete, to talk about the Amazon project.
Yeah, Kent, it was awesome to connect us together and talk about that. So yeah, and I guess like before we kind of jump into it here, so prior to selling at Amazon, like you didn't necessarily sell direct, right? You just had like kind of a dealer distributor network, right?
Right. It's that traditional distributorship model. And over the last several years, we just noticed we were reaching a point of stagnation and just not a lot of things were happening with that model. And that's when Kent and you, of course, got involved and said, hey, there's opportunities out there. And that's where you introduced this Amazon project. And
Yeah.
that's when this thing really started taking off.
Yeah. It was like 2017. I think I worked with you for like a year, right?
It took a while to get the senior management, the ownership team on board with this, but
yeah.
Thanks to your perseverance and Kent Keller and mine, we were able to make it happen.
Yeah, for sure. So, and the question I think you asked, and like a lot of people asked in general, was like, why should they, or why sell on Amazon? And I just put some bullet points here from just from basically your campaign and other ones where, for you, like a distributors were selling your products, but they had like the wrong descriptions, old images. If the reviews, you couldn't control the reviews. So if it was a bad experience, it was blamed on Pacer, right?
Right. Yes, there was images that were outdated. The technical specs for the pumps that we sell, a lot of that information was incorrect. So we needed to get in front of that.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's like you're to blame. People, they don't really care who they're buying it from. It's your product, and that's a pretty common theme we hear.
Right.
And then just as you're on Amazon, it's like if it's a new marketplace, why not try to generate the additional revenue from there?
Right.
And then I guess the last thing we'll talk about, which benefited you, and we had a few challenges like the brand registry. So we'll kind of go through that too. But basically, like because you are a brand and you have a registry to that, you can kind of take control of your products, right? And with yours, it was expired.
Yes, that was
Yeah.
really the only hiccup. And that was just due to something that we had happened a few years back, but we got right on that and initiated that process, and that created some delays for us. But outside of that, to get that brand registry with Amazon, it was there was hardly any problems with that. And once we were able to get our brand registered, you guys were able to get started right away.
Yeah, exactly. Interestingly enough, about 60% of the clients, their brand registry is expired.
It's just something that
You don't
wasn't on
know.
the radar
Yeah.
until
You
we
never
got on
need
with
it.
Amazon.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, overall. So, and I think the value of that for any kind of manufacturer is that you can stop counterfeit products. You can make sure that people aren't trademarking. You can trademark your items, and then you can see here just like the images will have your logos. The idea to it is once you kind of create that product, you kind of take ownership of it. And so, as you add new products, you get to determine like what image, what product description, things like that, not necessarily Pete, because I could like sell your same product, right?
Right.
So
Right.
it's not that other people can't sell Pacer pumps. It's just you own the listing. And then you also get the buy box with that too, or at least the first, first idea to that. So, and then the last thing, on there is you get like the storefront. So, which is always kind of cool, right? Because it's like,
Right.
hey, I have a bunch of products, and you can say visit my store on Amazon, which is becoming like a big deal. And then some A plus content, which I don't think we needed to do for you, but A plus content is basically like we can make the ultimate page for one of your products. So we haven't needed to do that, but
Right.
that is always like an option too in the future here. But yeah, so I guess we kind of talked about it early on, but I just had this big question of like, what were your initial reservations with selling on Amazon?
Well, I think
Loaded question.
probably. I mean, that's an obvious question, and I'm sure for any person that's out there listening to this in a small business situation, I think the idea of working with Amazon was a huge fear, overwhelming for us at first. But I really have to say that you sold us on WebFX expertise, and I will say that Adam Myhan, who is our point person here with Pacer Pumps, working with your team, you minimized everything. I mean, we have had nothing but a positive experience. We've had any issues that we had. You guys were Johnny on the spot. I mean, typically answers same day, no later than the next day of business. So any of those reservations that we had about dealing with Amazon and just the complexity of all that was really minimized by your operation, and we do appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you so much. I oftentimes say that I'm the slowest person. Right. So on there. Yeah, I would say that it's interesting because like I don't know the exact number today, but you think of like Granger, Amazon's taken like 35% of their business. So a lot of clients will say like, well, I don't know if B2B, if industrial products are sold here, but they are. So it's interesting, I find on there. And I guess like, we'll kind of talk about some of the end here, but like, yeah, think about you get your first order, right? So we
Right.
finally get the store set up, you run your ads, and then, we're just hitting refresh, right? And you get your first order. And what was that like?
I think that was probably that was the other piece that we were ready for, and that was working with your team. And of course, we had to make sure that we had all of those internal processes set up and ready to go, from order intake to where the part goes out or the item goes out for shipment. So we had to do some work there, making sure all those processes were set up. Adam and Kyle Portner, our production manager, were intimately involved in doing that. And of course, they were looking at, they mapped out several different shipping lanes and tried to estimate what those shipping costs were going to be for the products that we sold through Amazon. The accounting piece, we talked a lot about, of course, a lot of our small businesses are dealing with the sales tax issues. So we had to work on some of that, making sure that our business process was able to handle whether it's a taxable sale or not, and making sure that our accounting procedures accounted for that. But overall, I mean, things were pretty smooth, and your team helped us any type of challenge that we had. And there weren't many, honestly. It was actually a pretty simplified experience. I mean, any challenge that we did have, you guys were right there with us and helped us work through it quickly.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. I do remember there was we had like the ACOS, it fluctuates per week.
Yes.
And I think your accounting team didn't like that.
There was some give and take there. I think initially, since it's not a traditional model like we have been accustomed to, I think our corporate accounting team had to adjust their perspective on dealing with Amazon, because you are sort of now dealing with their way of life, the Amazon way, and they do. I think one of the things we had to work through was just the fee structures and understanding how those get applied, and then how to reconcile. That's a good point, Pete. The piece of reconciling the Amazon payments with the actual orders themselves. We had some adjustments to go through, but in a matter of weeks, those processes really became standard and normal, and everybody has adjusted, and there's really no issues at all to speak
Good.
of.
Okay. Yeah. So just a little bit of a learning curve
Right.
and just like a different way of doing business,
Yes.
right? So, which I think probably feels uncomfortable for the first like 5 or 10 orders, because you're like, if this is like we're making big changes for what could be a little bit of revenue.
Right.
So that's all I could see where that's like, is it worth like all of this work, right?
And that was, to your point, you have a small company like ours, 45 years in business, and there was a factor of resistance to change. Change is uncomfortable at times and then you're dealing with Amazon. So that was kind of part of that. But I would say, a year and a half into this thing, there's no issues. It's just become a daily routine and a daily process.
Right. Good. Okay, good. Yes, I'm glad to hear that. And I check in on the account quite a bit and I see everything's going well. Or if there's any kind of hiccups, like I see that we're working on it with Adam on there. So here's a question for you. Like, so, and I kind of have some bullets here, but should manufacturers sell on Amazon? So I wrote out some questions that I consistently go through to say, hey, if a manufacturer wants to sell on Amazon, here are the questions I ask, but I'd love your input here too. So I'll kind of go through mine. But so what I normally say to someone is like, they're like, hey, I don't know if this is products on Amazon, and we'll use you for example. Like, I don't know if there's like, centrifugal pumps on Amazon. So I look and say, yes, there are similar products being sold today with like a lot of reviews. And then, we looked at the price point to determine like, okay, here's how much a similar type product is selling for. Is this match what you would sell for? And then the last one, I think the biggest one is like, do you manufacture it? Because then we can kind of carve out like our own part of Amazon. And that's probably the most important in my mind. But, and then I have like kind of the ACoS calculator here, but I guess I'm curious, like what other questions should, or are there any that a manufacturer should ask himself before they consider this?
I think that nails it because in the course of working with you, Adam, Myhan, who was our point person, he spent a lot of time looking online and just seeing what is out there. I think that first bullet point you have there is just understanding what all is out there. And of course, as you and I had discussed, there were a lot of other players out there selling our product. And, that immediately, it just resonated with us. And why are we letting that happen? So I think the first bullet point there probably is the most critical. And for us, it was what really sold us on this. Hey, we are the OEM. We are the manufacturer. We need to own this space. And as you said, it ties into the customer reviews, the content, the images. We want to be the leader. We want to be the owner of that content. And it just made perfect sense for us to get on board with this.
Yeah, absolutely. And the interesting thing about having a storefront on Amazon is we couldn't identify which of your distributors were selling.
Right.
Because like when you create a store, I could put Pete's Hobby Shop and I could be Northern Tool. Nobody knows.
It was all over the place. Just like you said, we had certain larger companies, distributors out there, and then we had like mom and pop, small shops, family businesses selling our product. And to your point, we wanted to own that lane, and that's now we feel we're well underway to doing that.
Yeah, exactly. Because the important thing to keep in mind is like you don't own the customers.
That's
like
right.
Amazon keeps a pretty solid wall between you and the customer. So they think they're buying from Pacer Pumps. They're not. They're buying from Pete's Hobby Shop or whatever. But you never get a chance to explain that.
That's right.
So that's why, just like more important. And then I have like just like a screenshot of like ACoS, right? Or like this is like the FBA, like fulfillment by Amazon. And I guess so like ACoS standing for average cost of sale. Right. And it's kind of zoomed in here a little bit, but basically like Amazon has this calculator. So, but I guess from your perspective, so do you send stuff to Amazon for FBA to send out?
Yes, we do. We have FBA items, but we also do some fulfillment here through merchant. So we had to do some analysis, and that was also working with your team because some of our products, for instance, the gas-powered pumps, they're large, they're bulky, they're 50, 60 pounds. And we had to do some calculations there on whether it made more sense to ship directly from here or to put them in the Amazon fulfillment centers. So we looked at that and tried to make the right choices on which products we wanted to have at the fulfillment centers by Amazon.
And that makes sense because you have to pay to get the shipped to Amazon too.
Yes.
Right. So
and we have to load up our inventory and monitor those inventory levels. And that was another layer of complexity. We went through some processes, but now we really look at that on a daily and weekly basis.
Okay. Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah. So, and I guess from your perspective, so selling, is there a price point or is there a size of an item? Because you sell like some like rebuild kits and you sell like an actual pump. So the size difference could be what, like a 10 by 10 inch box to a 3 foot by 4 foot box, right? The size could be, so you're in a
Yes,
unique
it's
situation.
substantial. I have, like, behind me, you can't really see them that well, but we have large retail ready display cases. And that was really sort of our threshold there. We really didn't want to get into doing the fulfillment by Amazon with those large cases because they are heavy and bulky. But a lot of our repair kits and rebuild kits are smaller packages, like you said, 8 by 10 boxes. They're lightweight. And honestly, those have the highest velocity because our pumps are quality built pumps. And a lot of times the end user customer just wants to replace a seal kit, or they want to replace O-rings and seals, which are not heavy, bulky items. So those high velocity items we thought would make the most sense going into the fulfillment centers.
I see. So you keep the big items and you ship them yourself, and you
Yes,
send the smaller ones to Amazon. Okay, that
exactly.
makes sense. Yeah.
And that's worked for us so far.
Okay, good. Yeah, yeah. And I guess like when we first talked though, we were kind of like, hey, we're gonna list some of our new products coming out, like accessories or the rebuild kits. That wasn't even on the radar,
Right.
right? Because
That
it
was
was like a
not.
lower value item. But if I'm not mistaken, that's like some of your bigger sellers now. Is that correct?
It is. It is. Believe it or not. So we've had some discoveries along the way, and we're actually now really into discovering our next round. We'd like to introduce some new items that we
Awesome.
feel are going to help make the case even stronger.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah. So in some cases, like, so if a manufacturer is like, oh, my product's too big, but if they sell accessories to it, or I guess like rebuild kits or
Yeah,
whatever it
spare
may
parts.
be. Exactly. Yeah. So that's like a good avenue because that could be like a good revenue driver because it's an easy product.
And
Uh,
typically our spare parts we have a higher margin on those, and we see more velocity there. So it's a win-win for us on that.
okay, good. Yeah. And I guess the last point of this is, and this is a question I always get to, so I'm always like interested like to talk to you about this, but the difference in cost between shipping yourself versus like, so once you get the products to Amazon, it's like hands off, right? So what
I can't.
is there a drastic difference, if you ship from your own warehouse or if you send it to Amazon, let them take care of it. I'm curious to hear like the difference in say like percentage or like the fees. Which one would you suggest?
I think, as far as like between whether we ship here or from the warehouse.
Yeah, so a question might be here. Here's a question that we get a lot. Is it okay, say take the 10 by 10 box. The cost for you to ship that, right, with you coordinating with UPS or
Right,
FedEx,
right,
your
right.
own team handling all that, or actually you sending that to Amazon for fulfillment by Amazon, which is FBA. So imagine it's
Yeah,
like the 10 by 10 box, right?
yes.
Um, is there much of a difference in there, and which one would you suggest?
I think in that case, and that's what some of the analysis that Adam was involved in, they looked at different shipping lanes to just different geographical locations. And I think the reality was that there wasn't a big difference there. And that's what really made the case for letting Amazon handle that.
Okay.
It was basically hands off. I mean, we would make weekly scans of the inventory levels. We send the product to Amazon in bulk, and then that product then gets dispersed based on the customer requirements. And we were essentially hands off. Amazon handles all that. We didn't really see a major difference. It was really not until we got into those large parcels, the 50, 60 pounds, going from here in Lancaster, Pennsylvania out to Texas or to the West Coast. That's where you really start to see some
Sure.
wide, higher shipping costs.
Yeah, I can understand that, right? So it's good to know because I always get that question myself actually when I talk to folks about them, and I usually pull up this calculator and kind of go through that with them. But I was kind of curious there. So all right, so we decide we're going to move forward, right? And so basically, when I'm going to go over like kind of our process to work with someone like yourself is, we say, hey, we want to go. We kind of talk about like the ad budget, right? I do research on it, kind of give you an idea. We see how much the actual products are selling. We determine kind of your profit off of that,
Okay.
right? Is a rough range a little bit to make sure it all makes sense. And then, from there, we kind of determine like, we start like WebFX dives deep into like competitors, right? We start looking at all the
Yes.
brands out there. We start seeing what they're doing really well, where the opportunity is. And then we start looking for like the keyword research to determine like, what would people be searching for? And it's always interesting because people search the internet like 6-year-olds, right? So, so it's never like, it is either they're looking for an exact part number or I'm looking for some type of water pump, right, to
Right.
get water out of my basement or something, right? So, and then we of course create the products, and Amazon has like their own set and areas of products, so that makes it a little bit easier. And then we start measuring like which ones kind of work better over time. But then as part of the ads, we are creating like the sponsor products and then sponsor brand ads. So because you're a manufacturer and you have your own brand registry, we're able to create like brand ads, like about Pacer
Right.
pumps, which have a little higher conversion overall, right? Especially if there are like other, I don't call them like knockoff products, but non-branded products, right? You have a brand. So that in itself is probably worth 10% more to the end consumer who cares about that. And then just for WebFX, it's just the ongoing optimization. What we're doing, nothing we're doing, even I have a rocket, we're not doing like rocket science here. It's really just, I like to relate it to, I can cut my own hair, but I don't, right? So, it's like, so nothing we do is like, we're just good at it, right? And we have the process and the people to really work on this. And so, what we're doing, again, anybody could do, is just a level of expertise that we provide there. And then basically monthly reporting, we do, part of the reporting for you. And we kind of show, I guess like from that, we kind of show like how much you spent per week, right? The number of
Right.
sales per week, and then the top selling products, right? Is there anything else that we show that adds value?
I think what you've covered is really a good picture of that. And I know Adam, in talking with him about his support from your team, dealing with the keyword searches, the positive and negative keywords. I mean, that's like you just said, we are a small business here. We like wearing multiple hats, but that's kind of like not in our wheelhouse. And you guys are the experts, and you're dealing with this on a daily basis. So that is those coming up with that content and the keyword searches and managing those advertising campaigns is where your expertise came to bear. And that's where we were just very pleased with so far what has happened with our business
Yeah,
here.
it's good to hear. Yeah, and it's always like, for the management, I don't know, it's what we're spending on average, like for WebFX, like $1,000, but we had 8 people working on your campaign last month.
Right.
So it's just like, it's in-house, it's difficult to deal, to compare.
Well, Adam and I talked about this before, and we just for this conversation, I mean, had we not had the experience and expertise with WebFX working with us, I don't think we'd be where we are today. I mean, it's the level of experience and exposure you guys have brought is just incalculable at this point. We could not have gotten it this far on our own, and that's really what sold us on this program, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's good to hear. Thank you on there. The way we kind of structure our campaigns, just in general, people always like to ask about this is, how do you get, because a lot of times people, clients will say like, once I get the campaign set up, it's like, I don't need to do anything, but we find
Right.
that's not true. So, I think for you, if I looked at all the keywords in total, it's about 4,000 keywords we kind of pulled together, right?
Right.
For these like 20 products, right? So it was like a lot of variations. We didn't use all those, but that's what we came up with. And then, from there, it's like we'll have categories like new pumps and like maybe rebuild kits, and then we do 2 different groups within that. And I guess the point of this page is like, every time we run an ad, we run like an ad copy variation of it to see which one performs better. And then if one performs better, we use that one. So it's like, it's almost like the football like network, like the Final Four, right?
Right.
So we're always comparing ads against ads, and whichever one wins stays, and it competes with the next one. So, this is probably like ongoing. This is like, it looks like a fancy graph, but this is probably the key to success, right? Is like
Yes.
not just constantly making it like 1% better. That's the end goal here, right? Is just you come into a problem, or maybe competitors start spending more on the market, and then we just be flexible and move with it, right? So, and just as an example, this is like for one of your products, and I had to cut it off so it fit on a page here, but for your rebuild kit, right? So just from
Right.
our perspective, this is how we normally, we'd have the rebuild kit, the product ID, and then, we kind of put through keywords and search terms. So we're kind of see like, here's the keywords we want to add to your Amazon page, and here's what people are searching for. And, you can see the search forms go all over, right? So whether
Right.
it's be for like ag, to parts, to water, to seal, right? So, we do kind of go through a long list to kind of narrow it down to where we're going, and then we're just constantly monitoring that, overall. So this is always interesting to see, because when someone like says like, there's no search volume for this, and then you see this and they're like, oh yeah, there is search volume, right? On there. I did put, this is like just our, this is Paige, who worked on your
Yes.
campaign for a long time. I believe Maddie's with you guys today. But basically, yeah. So we'll like, you can see just the campaign changes. We'll talk about the ACoS percentage and just like the campaigns that are working best and the ones that we've paused. You made reference to negative keywords, which is like an integral part to like a good optimization. Like one is we add in keywords and those keywords get bid on for an ad, but then we start monitoring it to say like, great, this ad got clicked 10 times. It cost you, $25, but you didn't get a sale. We make that a negative keyword, so we don't get that ad clicked on anymore. So yeah, so it's not all about adding keywords. Sometimes it's about adding the negative ones in there. So like we're kind of make it very, very targeted, very, 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 very targeted. And our end goal in most cases is not to execute all of your ad spend if we don't have to.
Right.
And that's where it kind of fluctuates, because if you say, hey, I want to spend, I don't know, whatever it may be, X amount of dollars a month, we may not always execute that based on what searches are out there and what sales there are.
I think Adam and Paige have worked well together, your team. And I know you said from the very beginning, if something's not working, we're going to tweak it and we're going to adjust it. And Adam has said that has consistently been the case. If there needs to be an adjustment, it's made quickly.
Right.
And the goal is helping Pacer sell the most as we can. So we're very pleased with that.
Good. Yeah. Paige and I had a call yesterday just to kind of go over a few things with this, and we like laughed about our internal kickoff because I was introducing Pacer pumps, and she just like sat there for a minute and said, I'm going to have to start reading about water pumps.
Well, and that's the thing. Your team has, in that process, I think they have become very, very familiar with our marketplace and what our competitors are doing. So kudos to them.
Yeah, you have to actually do that. Yeah, so it's just that's pretty funny. So, and I guess like, yeah, what advice would you give other manufacturers, right? So, like, we talked about a little bit of this, but like the products versus accessories or parts, right, or rebuild kits, and then we'll talk a little bit about returns, and then just we talked about you sending inventory to Amazon. So I guess like, yeah, like if somebody's starting out, would you suggest they did just like parts, or would you suggest they go all in with new products and parts?
Well, I think, we were pretty conservative with this. If you recall, I think we initially just talked about only a few items, maybe half a dozen, and then that started to grow. And especially now as our comfort level has grown, we're looking to do more. So initially we thought that the biggest bang would be for those small items, the rebuild kits, the repair parts. But then we sort of had a change in thought there when we see now that the buying patterns, I mean, people out west who may not have access to these retail stores, or they're not close to maybe a major metropolitan city, they're using Amazon, and we looked at this as being a vehicle to get our pumps, the large items, out to them. So that's sort of the dynamic that we have went through from the very early stages. And now we're just looking at it as, look, all we want to do is take care of the customer, the end user. We want to handle that need however we can. If it's through the fulfillment centers, great. If we can do something through our site, then we will. Ultimately, we want to satisfy the customer.
Yeah, that makes sense completely. Yeah. And returns, how do you handle does it make your skin curl when you get a return?
Well, and actually, so that's a good point you bring this up, because really the fulfillment by merchants, the product that we're sending here, we really don't have an issue. Our product is a quality product in the first place. We don't see large percentages defect rates. So I don't even know if we've even had a single return on a fulfillment by merchant item. So on the other side of that, the fulfillment by Amazon, we did have to work out a process to handle that. For instance, somebody orders the wrong item, they had the wrong part number, well, for whatever reason, or, we had a couple of issues where somebody, instead of ordering one, they ordered 2 or 3 by accident. So we'd have to handle that, or we really just had to have an internal process to deal with that. But Amazon handles all of it. They bring those items back to their fulfillment centers. They evaluate whether or not it's sellable, and then they'll give us a notification on what the disposition is, and then we just make an adjustment. So there really just has to be internal processes to deal with that, but it wasn't any problem to get all that stuff resolved.
Okay, good. Yeah, so it sounds more complicated than it is in practicality, right?
Very easy to work with.
Good. Okay, yeah, because it's a question I get all the time too. from manufacturers is like, the returns. And so that's good. That's some good advice there overall. I guess to wrap this up. So, yeah, so you're on Amazon. When we think about, so people say like, where do you go from here, right? And, what likely will be on the roadmap here, at least as options for you, will be there's Amazon Canada, right? So
Right.
some of your items we could potentially ship there. And then, once you have this process built out, so you have this process built out to sell in a marketplace,
Yes.
right? Amazon being the biggest one. Well, Walmart is the second biggest, and it's taken it went from like 0 to 20% of Amazon sales here in the past like 18 months. I do envision in the next 8 to 12 months, Amazon's going to be a place where we're like saying, let's get on Walmart,
Mm-hmm.
right? So they're jumping into that, and there's a few other players out there too. So it's like once you have this process figured out, like Amazon is just one avenue now, right?
Right.
So
Right.
if you were to say, let's go to Walmart, in the next year on their marketplace, and they're investing heavily into that. Walmart is, it wouldn't be much of a change at all
Right.
on there, right? So it's like it's good to know, that's like an option, right?
Right.
And even like the Canada option. So there's it's interesting how you can, like, now that you have it set up, there's like other avenues to go to, and that it's introducing new products, right, or new ideas of products, which is kind of cool overall. So Kent, yeah, thank you. This basically like wraps it up today. I think the goal here was just to kind of talk about your story of how you went from not selling direct to consumer at all, right, to standing all this up. I was impressed. I gotta be honest with you, when you signed the proposal, I was a little nervous because, I thought it would work. I had about 95%, maybe like an 82% rate, that it was going to be a success, right? 95 might be a little high. All the data showed that it would work. I guess we don't talk about numbers, but I know you had some projections in year one or so,
Yes.
and I believe you exceeded those, right?
We
So
exceeded those, and I think going back to that one slide, I think the biggest thing I could say is that we overcame that fear of not doing this. The fear of getting involved in this process. We were able to overcome that, and look where we are today. So to your point about opening this up or expanding this or being open to new possibilities, it's only going to be that much more easy for us to adapt to those things. Because look, we looked at this behemoth a couple of years ago and we were sort of like, oh, no way, we'll never do that. And here we are. We're doing it now. We had our first year. We last year we started, remember, 2019 in July, and we had about a $50,000 sales target out there, and we blew that away. And this year we're on track to break $300,000 in sales, and I think we're probably going to go well above that. So we are definitely on track. We have exceeded the expectations, and we cannot say enough about your support, WebFX, and then of course I have to give hat off to Kent Keller for
sure, yeah,
actually bringing us together, because we started with Kent talking about strategic sales and finding new avenues to sell our product, and that's really where we started this process.
Yeah, I would say Kent was an integral part here, because when I first talked to him, Amazon wasn't on my radar for you. And
That's
we
true.
talked about doing digital marketing, we talked about e-commerce, and determined that may not be the best route for you. And Kent actually brought up the Amazon idea to me. Said, well, you guys offer this. Have you ever thought about that? So I can take very little credit for all this. He essentially said, this seems like that would be a good avenue for them. So yeah, I'd like to thank him too for that.
It was a great job. So we're very pleased, and we're looking forward to a lot more things here through Amazon.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.